basically, I got out to California and I started experiencing people respond to my accent. And having a Southern accent in LA is a damn thing for sure.
Yeah, dude.
And people will help. At a certain point, people are like, hell, just you come hang out with us and just talk. Like we just want you part of the entourage. So I wound up in all these interesting places, and I discovered myself as a Southern troubadour, having made the pilgrimage, just like Tom Petty and Lucinda Williams and Jerry Reed and a bunch of these other cats that had done this Southern troubadour, gone to LA thing. And simultaneously, I got homesick for sweet tea and grits. And my youth, which was spent running away from country music, I found myself, country music started coming out of me out in Los Angeles.
There has got to be more than this.
Welcome to the Morse Code Podcast, where we talk with entrepreneurially minded creatives in music, film, and writing. My name's Korby, and I'm hoping these conversations inspire you to push deeper into your own work, whether you're a full-time professional or just starting out on your own creative odyssey. Before I get to our next guest, the Morse Code Podcast is celebrating its 6th month anniversary with a live show. That's happening Sunday, April 14th at the 5 Spot right here in East Nashville. Many of the guests we've had on the show are performing that night. Guests like Jill Andrews, Abigail Compst, plus some plein air painting from Nathan and Judd Epting. We're going to raffle off one of those paintings and sell the other one. It's going to be wild. We'll also have a performance by our next guest. Tickets go on sale March 4th at korbyandlenker.com. Speaking of that next guest, I'm happy to bring you one of my favorite personalities in East Nashville, Boo Ray. Boo happens to be one of the most active performers in the scene. I've watched him twist through a roadside rocker, breathe new magic into an old Haggard song. You always get the sense that he means what he sings. Self-described redneck rock and roller, I found Boo to be a thoughtful and even introspective artist with some pretty spirited takes on the connection between lifestyle and songwriting. If you get something out of the Morse Code Podcast, please take a second to like and subscribe. And now, here's my conversation with Boo Ray. Boo Ray.
Yeah, man.
Dude, it's great to see you, man. Thank you for being here.
Same, Korby. Thanks
I'm so
for
excited
having
to
me.
talk to you. Ever since you popped by the party, what was that, in November, or Bear Branch party in the front yard. I had such a great time talking to you. And I was just like, this guy, he's a card, he's a character, he's an artist, he's great at conversation. I can't wait to get him on the podcast. So who knows what's going to happen here.
Thanks. I'm in. I count me in. I'm in on all counts. And I've been in. I knew about you as a songwriter first. And then I've been casually following, acquaintances around town.
Sure.
And then I saw your movie come up, and I made it to the premiere at Belcourt.
You sure
and
did.
And it blew my mind.
Like a class act.
It was so good.
I'm so grateful to you for being there. And that was a cool night. There was a lot of friends that came out, and it was fun to see everybody. And you were also, didn't you drop in during the filming? Because I remember
accidentally.
It was kind of COVID-y still.
Yeah, totally.
And
100%.
we shot.
You guys were at
Sip Cafe in East Nashville, and they weren't like, the dining room wasn't open, but they'd let us film there. And that was you don't know anything about this, but man, that was a tension-ridden day, because I guess the management people, and to get that to happen was repeated visits over weeks, and meeting the MOD was like, the owner, he only comes in once a week, and leave your information, no call, come back in, hey, just following up. And we finally got him to kind of reluctantly let us be there. We showed up with, it was like, there's a lot, the crew was between cast and crew, there's 25.
Yeah, you guys had a
people,
you guys had a
trucks out,
for sure.
And they were just like immediately DEFCON 5. The alarms were signed. Like, they were so mad that we were there.
You guys pulled it off, though.
We did okay, but it was just funny. And then you came in and you sat, like, you were kind of an extra for a second,
for a moment, and I totally didn't mean to. I was.
No, you didn't. You just were coming in for some ice cream.
I felt self-conscious as hell, because I was like, oh God, these guys are like, I wasn't even sure I was supposed to walk in the damn door. I was like, maybe it's only drive-through today. And then of course I get self-conscious and I get irritated. Still, sometimes on occasion, I've mostly grown past this, but my first response to uncomfortableness and fear is fight or flight shit. And I'm right on the borderline, my old ways of like, of that. So I bristle, you know, like
You
so,
bristle.
So right there, as I walked into your set, I was like, oh God damn it, what's going on? You know, I was like,
well, you played it pretty cool.
well, you guys were super sweet, and
of course, and Travis was there, and you guys knew each other.
Yeah.
He's a gentleman.
Oh, he's top notch. Yeah, no, it was cool. That was great.
Well,
Great.
dude, I feel like you're one of the busiest people in town. I mean, you're playing somewhere. It looks like all the time, but like, realistically, how many days a month do you feel like you're
when
playing?
I'm cranked up and it takes me when I'm busy like that, playing 3 times a week at a decent, you know, playing full sets, full band sets, you know, and 3 times a week is my preference. That's how I often like. That's a good number of
like twice on the weekend, once in the week, something like that.
Yeah, love it. Friday and Saturday night and Tuesday or Wednesday night is great. When I've got that going on, it takes a while each year to build that, and I'm still, God, you know, doing all this stuff entirely ourselves as we do. It's like, you know, you're thinking about booking for March. It's like that needs to have been done before Christmas, you know, and it's just like it's just never ending 8-ball that you just can't get out from.
You're triggering me right now. I mean, one of the things that for me happened in the pandemic was all of a sudden, you know, nobody could tour, and 2 things happened there. One was like I stopped being able to do it, and so gone went all of that anxiety around what you're talking about, where people don't understand this is if you're booking yourself, you're thinking about what's happening 6 months from now, 4 months from now, 3 months from now, next month, 2 weeks from now, and tomorrow, you know, and next week. You're juggling all of those things at the same time, and you're never really caught up. And if I know some people that have a talent for that, you know, they're artist types, and they're real organized, and they don't mind doing it. I was never one of those people.
Me neither.
I never got used to it.
Neither.
10 years of hard touring, I was just always anxious. Yeah. And one of the things I liked about the acting game is completely different in the sense that it's irritating in a different way. Everything's a little irritating, you know, taken from a certain angle, but you'll get an audition, you know, on a Tuesday, it'll be due most of the time within 2 days, you know, so it's like disruptive. You're like, okay, I got to stop doing this. But when you book it, it's next week, right? You know, or most of the time it's not very far away, and so you're not having to juggle it. You're having to be more like flexible and available rather than, you know, ridiculously organized, in real time. So, I mean, we all have to make our peace with both of those things. But how have you gotten better over the years? Do you feel like kind of maintaining your schedule and staying on top of it? I'll
say this: I've improved in very small increments regarding that, as far as keeping the schedule. But what I have improved in is I have improved in letting go of what's not working. And as quickly as possible, shifting to what is working, what I can put my hands on, and what I can change. Then right then, and in a reasonable, I try to balance, you know, and I do a horrible job of the balancing. But with keeping, you know, the 6 months, 8 months is still out there, but I'm able to put my hands on. Well, look, I've got this. I can go ahead and confirm these 5 dates, and I can confirm the players and advance the shows on these 5, and that's what I got to do today. And I chalk that up in the W column at the end. of the day.
For sure. I mean, like knowing how to prioritize is so key. You know, and there's always stuff you're not going to get to. That's everybody, really. But
it's almost like production values.
Yeah.
Like the prioritization of this stuff, like to me, it's almost like a series of production values.
Yeah. I mean, we all have the same 24 hours, and it's like what you get to, and you're gonna have to make choices, and you don't get to, like, I mean, there's always constraints on everything. If it's a movie, if it's a band, if it's a tour, well, you know, it'd be great to go out with a 5-piece band and a tour bus, but unfortunately the overhead is, you know, prohibitive for most of us. So tell me this, are you touring like mostly regionally, or are you staying local? What does a typical month look like, if there is such a thing?
Sure, there kind of isn't. I have had periods of well, this is the way it's going to go down for this period of time. And it's basically been based a lot since 2015 based on the kind of deals that I've had in place and who I've had the deals in place with. 2015 to 2019, I was busy coast to coast, and Eastern Seaboard and West Coast and Colorado. I'd post up in Colorado for a month at a time, and just work the radio shows in the AM hours and the play of some venue or Vale Brewing Company or something like that in the PM hours.
What do you mean the radio shows in the like?
I post up in Nederland, and I'd come down off the mountain in the AM. And I'd play. There's a whole series of radio stations all up and down. They call it the Range, and there's actually a radio station called the Range out there. But I guess the north, it runs sort of northwest to south or northeast to southwest. The way that mountain range. Yeah. And so you come down into Boulder in the AM hours, grab a coffee and run to the radio station. And there's about 10 radio stations within a radius of 50 miles. It's a short,
And are you, in that sense, are you going to promote the show that night?
Well, I was releasing material and records and stuff during this time. So I was always out in support of some release.
And are these like what AAA stations? Is that what your format was? Or Americana?
Yes,
AAA?
yeah. Brad Paul was doing the radio.
Oh,
work.
nice. Yeah,
and he's fabulous.
He's been around for a minute.
And that 2015 record got a bunch of traction for me, and I got a bunch of exposure on that. I would say, still, all being said, we probably got 30% horsepower out of that release of what should have happened. We had a couple of technical within the team of people that were working on that release. There was a couple of technical tragedies, life upsets, like players were, essentially in sports analogy, they were ushered off the field, you know. And this was, like we're talking about, like I found out difficult information 6 weeks before the record hit the street and that kind of stuff. And like team members are like, well, we're not going to be able to participate. It's like, oh God.
Yeah. And it's too late to find somebody else.
Exactly.
I mean, people don't understand how many moving parts there are. The bigger, when you're really just, I'm kind of like, for me, I feel like this part of me is just like starting over in music, and it's just me again. And I'm thinking about, should I put singles out, or should I, I did a record in 2021, a whole record, and took out a loan and a Kickstarter. I'm still paying for that record, which is kind of like, I'm over it. I'm pretty much over it now, but it hurt my feelings for a while to just be like, God, I can't even, I got like a lot of vinyl records in the closet right now, and I know, and, but like, there's been times in my life when maybe a record had $20,000 release budget that I came up with, and so you're hiring the biggest publicist that'll take you, and ready to tour. Maybe you got a sidey or a band even for a short run. And but there's the more people you add to the machine, the more variables, the more things can break and go wrong, and the timing doesn't line up, the vinyl's not ready on time. All of these things have to be kind of, and they never really are. The show must go on. You show up and you do the best you can.
That's right. I do understand why the machine places the artist in a place where the artist has a liaison between all these moving parts, because it is a difficult bridge to cross. Like, for instance, if you're booking agent or your publicist or whoever on the team, or your marketing person is, whoever's handling whichever station at the time, if they need encouragement, more information, correction, managing, monitoring, if they need that, and you as the artist / entrepreneur are the one to put the pressure on them and bring this to the attention, it just doesn't work.
It's not good. You're like, God, that's so true. I mean, as an artist, you want to be fun to be around. You want to be inspiring. You want to be a pleasure. Yeah. And that is really difficult to maintain when the rubber meets the road, when you're getting maybe dicked over by a club, or like somebody messed up and the load in's wrong, or you show up, God forbid, show up and the date was last week or tomorrow, or you know, whatever. And you have every right to be irritated at the person who fucked up. Yeah. But and maybe sometimes you do get a little irritated, but it's never a win. It's never a good look.
Never a win.
It's never a win.
Yeah. There is. I will say this. I think it is incredibly unrealistic and unfair projection and expectation, and particularly in the lower rungs, which we exist in, you know, the kind of services that we can afford, the industry services that are at our disposal, most of the time, the stuff that we can afford is the difficulty of the artist navigating that is treacherous, because we are expected to gush benevolence and gratitude at all times, and that's literally the only card we're allowed to play. Like, that's it. And if we have something else to say, that's like, hey, well, ain't nobody interested in whatever else the artist has to say, really. Yeah. I mean, that's not fair, and it's a control mechanism. Like, so if I have, like, hey, I have a little bit different idea, and I think you could do more with this, and you're talking to one of the other agents on one of these other stations in your realm, and you say, hey, I think I've got a little bit of a different vision. I think we could do more than that. I think there's some dots you could connect here. You know, 7, 8, 9 times out of 10, what I have experienced is an immediate pushback and deflection. And here's the method that this machine, and I used to say this is the way it goes down across the street, across the river, and that's where this is relegated. This behavior is limited to this over there. Like we us independents don't do that, but the machine does this, and that is this. As soon as the team is able to prescribe the artist as unreasonable, the whole team just goes on and does whatever the fuck they want.
So just they're almost waiting for you to just be difficult.
Do anything.
So that you can be dismissed.
100%. 100%, dude.
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, and people wonder why artists get reputations now and then of being divas or like difficult to work with.
Yeah.
And I mean, art is difficult to work with. You know what I mean?
Messy.
It's difficult. It's messy. It's difficult to create. It's nobody needs your song or your book in the way that we need doctors. You know, you're creating this need. Yeah. And so that's already, you have to like insert yourself into the flow of consumption and go like, me too. Like, check this out though.
Right.
And that very nature is not for the faint of heart and is disruptive and is annoying in a way, unless you're gracious about it. You're gracious about it, and people who survive learn to be at least kindly.
I attribute 100% of my ability to any of the navigation that I have successfully done. I attribute that 100% to my experience of getting sober, and I had a couple of great mentors in my life, and I began learning how to communicate differently, and take it on the chin of like, hey, this is not fair, but this is the way it is. And so like, if you want the end result, or do you want do you want to go on expressing the unfairness, or do you want the end result? You know, and I want the end result eventually.
I get that. I mean, I feel the same way. I'll put up with a lot in the short run if I can sort of still see where I want to be, and if eating crow today is the best solution for the win, perhaps the potential win a few weeks from now, or months from now, or years from now. Yeah, I'll probably eat the crow in the short term.
Sure,
I don't care, man. You can say whatever you
want.
I
try to, I try to play that card as often as possible, thinking long-term game. A game changer for me, I was having lunch and coffee with my buddy Aaron Lee Tasjan, and we were talking about something.
Borderline genius.
Oh, yeah, he's brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely, agreed. We were talking about some aspect of the industry or we might have been talking about an artist, and like an artist we both liked, and he had this comment. I think there was a query on the table of like, you think this guy's got it or not?
Yeah.
And Aaron's comment was, he said, I think this guy's got enough gratitude to do it. And that was the criteria, is the ability of the guy to have gratitude. Not talent, not drive, but gratitude. And that hit home with me. At the end of the day, at the very end of the day, regardless of how any of this stuff is going, regardless of the scorecard, what choice do I make at the end of the day? And I've been doing this long enough that I know in my heart, like, that for whatever reason, like, I'm gonna pick the songwriter thing every time. I've done a couple of forays into other stuff and had varying degrees of success and lack of success and happiness and unhappiness. I'm just built. I don't have to deliberate anymore. Of like, let me say this: I definitely consider my choice of being a full-time songwriter as a vow of poverty. 100%. There's no gray area. Like, I understand that.
Yeah, there's a thing in a question that I think about, and I want to say, firstly, like you, somewhere along the way, I made some kind of commitment to this life, come what may. And consequently, I've had, it's just, what has the wind been? The wind's been long on freedom, of a kind. You're sort of also bound to the road and the people's tastes, whatever. You're bound to a lot of things you can't control, but you still have a high degree of freedom. And it's like, especially as an indie artist, it's like, these are my songs. This is what I'm hawking. I'll live and die on this. Yeah. And what you said earlier about taking the vow of poverty, and I can relate to that. And the thing that I think about too is, somewhere along the way, I stopped couching my idea of being an artist as a dream, like chasing a dream, and more like a calling. And whether or not, maybe that's self-aggrandizing or something, but I don't think so.
No,
I just felt like
you could be a cobbler.
Yeah, you could be called to any number of things. You'd be called to be a freaking priest, be a traditional thing, and
or teacher.
Or teacher. Like, all of these things
those are callings. Yeah.
Those are callings. Yeah, you make a compromise, a financial compromise.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that once I decided to heed the call, it's kind of like what falls out from that is not irrelevant, but not going to be the determining factor in whether or not I stick with it.
No, 100%. Yeah, I've always recognized you as that from a long time ago, when I was just knowing you as a cutting edge guitar player and songwriter and singer. You're a great vocalist and a great songwriter. Your sense of melody and chords and your finger picking abilities are excellent. And I've always been like, this cat's not like he's not following anybody. He's not copping on anything. He's got a vision, and you can't put limitations. Like the cats like that are just out there doing their fucking thing. And I consider myself. I think you're about what I'm doing.
Absolutely in that camp. Yeah, man. Same. It like knows like.
Yeah.
And I've always felt like that. Boo Ray, he's just like, he's following his own flag. Man, that guy's doing it his own way. Kind to everybody. Like, I haven't ever heard anyone say an unkind word about you.
Thank you.
But you're doing it your own way, and you're also like a very humble guy about it. You're not like, hey, fucking check this out. But you also are like, there's nothing on accident happening over there. You're enjoying yourself as well.
Yeah. Gosh. There is a point of. It's an interesting world. People approach Buddhism, and I learned this slowly over the years, as my path, my own personal path, has been a path of addiction and recovery, and that has been my route my in way to a spiritual mindset and a spiritual connection and that approach. And along that way, I've learned. I didn't know there was many different types of Buddhism as there are Christianity. Like there's real sort of left-minded mystical stuff, and then there's real Hasidic strict.
Yeah.
And then within that spectrum, there's this sort of grounded agrarian, sort of agrarian and authentic, rootsy, balanced version. And I have a friend, a close friend of mine. He in the years that I was pursuing sobriety and discovering that path, he's been studying Buddhism all these years, and so I was able to sort of piggyback on his learning in that regard, and those ideas were very accessible to me.
I love this angle, and so does that continue to be a part of your practice?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Meditation.
Yes.
How would you describe your
bastardized
practice?
My own bastardized versions of everything. I don't do anything exactly right. I mean, like nothing.
Yeah.
That being said, the basic ideas and the way my beliefs, if you will, fall. They are congruent with lots of that ideology for sure.
Yeah. When you were saying that all the different types of Buddhism, I think of like, and this is not somebody talking about anything they know, but like Buddhism or Zen Buddhism would be kind of like on the more like artful side and gentle side, and that kind of dips into Taoism, which is sort of like a very gentle approach. And like on the other experience would be like Vipassana Buddhism, which is just like kind of pain oriented in a way.
Sure.
And, there's been a time in my life when, I came out of evangelical Christianity. That's what my parents were into. I come from a long line of preachers. I feel like I got preacher blood in me. And I tend to see the world through that. Probably because I had like a positive experience in it. But I've always been interested in ways of being and religious practices. We were just at Sundance last week, and we went to a Shabbat dinner with a Jewish group of folks that a friend of mine invited us. I'd never been a part of that, and it was just like really fun to be part of it and witness and like have everybody be receptive to our presence. And anyway, that said, like from college on, I got pretty interested in Buddhism, and I sat with a Zen group for probably 3 years. I was like the youngest.
Oh, you got
like
far more
years.
experience than I do in that realm.
Well, dude, this is all get to say that at some point I had come across a guy that was really interested in this other lineage called Vipassana, and there's these retreats that happen, and somebody listening,
they got a
exactly
Vipassana retreat up in Louisville, right?
Yeah, they got one in Louisville. They got one in Kentucky. They got one outside of Atlanta.
So you probably know who Trung Pa is. You know Trung Pa?
Yeah, the writer, the famous monk. Yeah, for sure. And I don't know if he's.
Did you know he was a drunk?
No, but I'm not surprised.
He was a hopeless alcoholic.
I've heard. I mean, like some of the thing about Buddhism is some of those. You can be both two things at once.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the ideas and teachings.
And Trung Pa, that is the lineage that I wound up being. That my friend turned me onto, and that's the series of books that I read. Yeah, that's the same stuff that I got into.
I mean, one of the best lessons I ever learned out of that time in my life, because I haven't meditated in a minute, and I don't know if I ever actually did. In the sense of just like you sit there and watch your breath.
Couple minutes at a time is all I've ever been able.
Yeah,
and
even in those couple minutes, I'm like 1 second of like attention.
A moment,
and my mind is like. Yeah, but that. The thing that you do learn is that I am not my feelings, I am not my thoughts, and that idea of like there being an awareness of the I outside of that has served me so well in so many difficult situations.
Agreed.
Emotionally trying situations. It's like rather than being like surrendering to this tidal wave of feelings, often unpleasant. Yeah, you can have this little glimmer of just like, oh, there's that. I feel like this. Yeah. And you don't feel any less that way, but there's some awareness outside of it, and that is like your lifeline. out of there or through it.
I know exactly the dynamic you're talking about. I can't remember who this is at the moment. I've been relaying this little technique. Somebody turned me onto it. I'm trying to sit here. It's so regular to me. This is one of the first when I encounter somebody who's in stress, in somebody who's in stress or upset of some kind of emergency. One of the things that I say, and somebody did this for me years ago, and it worked like the very first time. As soon as somebody laid this idea on me, I was able to grasp it, and it went to work immediately. Which is, I tell the person as they're sitting there panicking or going through this experience of feeling out of control and upset, I say, hey, do me a favor. So you're sitting here freaking out over this series of dynamics and this criteria and these events, and you're sitting right here in this room with me. Do me a favor and do this. Put the pause button on that. We don't have to fix any of it or anything. Just leave that situation just right there like it is. Now take one step backwards out of yourself, and now view yourself as that person that is upset and freaking out somewhat about these dynamics. And you have just then, if you can just pull that out, even just for the slightest moment, you have brought a higher level of consciousness to the table, and you're no longer trapped as that person who's freaking out. You're an outside entity who is viewing that.
And it's so powerful. That is so powerful.
That was my way in.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Can I ask when you got sober, or when you
Yes.
started going
Well, it's
down
been a long path of. I got sober the very first time in '96. I was sober for a few years. My approach was, I had great mentorship, but my approach was a little bit off. I basically had the idea that, oh hell, this is great. I'm sober now. I'm gonna put on a long sleeve shirt and cover up my tattoos. I'm just not gonna make any more mistakes. And I thought that was going to be the path, and then it absolutely didn't happen that way. I got angry basically a few years into it, and I wound up getting drunk a few years into it, and then I entered this period of sober for a year, drunk for 6 months, sober for 2 years, drunk for 90 days, and that was incredibly devastating and destructive. And even though my periods of sobriety were longer than my periods of inebriation, man, I mean, in 6 weeks, in 3 weeks, I could burn 3 years worth of life that I had built. I'd burn it to the ground, and over a long weekend of drinking and doing drugs. Yeah.
How long? When did you
So I was
for the last time?
So, the last time that I had to go to detox, and the last time that I had to go to detox, and the last time I drank alcohol or did any narcotics or any drugs or any cocaine was 2009.
Dude, that's a long time, man.
This is the longest stretch in my life thus far. Yeah,
that's amazing and inspiring to me. And congratulations if that's in order.
Thanks.
And that's a great prompts this question, and this is something I wonder about a lot. But how did that change your relationship to your creativity when being sober?
Good question. Great question.
Did you get better, good, bad, indifferent?
Absolutely, it was a definite shift. For me personally, prior to that, my identity was built. I had built my identity around this addict. And no holds barred, Jim Morrison, Johnny Paycheck kind of idea, the conception that I had for
all
myself.
The romance of that.
100%.
Yeah,
I bought into it hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
And I went out and I figured that was my criteria. Instead of, that's what I needed to do is crash cars, wreck motorcycles, shoot guns, get beat up and be in barroom brawls. I go to be incarcerated. I thought that was my criteria that I had to fulfill. And I went and fulfilled that.
Yeah.
And upon actually getting sober, it took me a while to get. I mean, hell, when I first got sober, I got in some trouble, and I was terrified when I first got sober. So I got scared walking down the damn beer aisle in the grocery store. Like had somebody seeing me walk down the damn beer aisle. I was like, my
like, because you felt like you would. You were so susceptible that you might grab a beer or
just I think that partially that, but even just this overwhelming sense of shame and guilt that I was just trapped in, but it's a, I mean, and let me say this too. I got, in 2009, it was still not hip to declare your sobriety as a press release, like people in 2009 you get sober. It's like, right now you release it like a press release, and a bunch of people get on board and congratulate, but in 2009 it was still like, that guy needed it, he's bad, he's not a good guy, there's a big particularly in the South, which for me personally, winding up in California, which is where the Betty Ford Clinic, and they're 2 decades ahead of the East Coast on the lack of stigma associated with sobriety and mental illness and mental health and suicide prevention. Generally speaking, you stop somebody in California and be like, hey man, I'm just a week I'm sober and I'm kind of freaking out. It'd be like, you ask a general person on the street, literally 7 out of 10 people be like, you probably ought to go to AA meeting or something. You know what I mean? It's just household knowledge out there. You're an addict, you go get sober.
Yeah.
Here on the East Coast, we still trying to hide
that stuff.
Yeah.
So we were talking about how did your your notion change?
I was scared to write from the perspective of an active, participating drinker user, and it took me a while to get out from under this thumb of shame and guilt, so that my perspective was not constantly so self-obsessed and also shame-based regarding my relationship to the world in general, and particularly nightlife and partying and drugs and alcohol and women and all the things. So it took me a while to be able to put that down and get back to being able to write a simple drinking song. It took me a damn minute. And then once I did figure that out, it came readily. I was able to. Now I can freely write about any subject matter, I think.
Yeah, like treating it as like a character in a song, like a character in a story. This is like me. This isn't my story. This is like this guy. That once removed idea again.
Yeah.
Just like,
agreed.
And
a huge tool for me. I agreed. Same as big a tool for me as it was for you. Agreed.
Well, that's a great segue. Maybe do you want to play a song?
Let's do it. Absolutely, cool. Man. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think you might do?
Well, since we were talking about the timelines of getting, but at what point was I able to effectively write again about real life and real dynamics without being under the thumb of this and the filter of this constant self guilt and shame. I was out and I made it out to California and got sober out there again. Music Care sent me out there.
Oh wow.
And I found myself a couple of years into sobriety out there, and in a hard moment, I was living at the Mark Twain Hotel in between Sunset and Hollywood Boulevard, and right there in dead central Hollywood, and it was the darkest joint I've ever stayed in my life. In the room that I stayed in, there was literally like a spot on a permanently wet, like a permanently damp spot on this rug where I don't know, somebody bled out there or died. It was a rough joint. Anyways, in that place, it was literally called the Mark Twain Hotel. And I would every time I'd wake up, in Brother Where Art Thou, when George Clooney, every time he wakes up, he's like, oh, my hair. Yeah. So I would wake up where my fucking car was parked, and I'd have a panic attack every single time I'd wake up where the car was parked at the time, and where it was about to get towed or whatever, because Hollywood parking.
Sure.
And so I wound up writing this song that became an important part of my catalog called 6 Weeks in a Motel.
Cool. Let's hear it.
wanted to be as famous as she was. Baby, you are a bright shining star. With your high heels and your fast talk, I saw you on the sidewalk, neon. You look like a song. You moved into my room with a suitcase like a dust broom. You swept my little heart away. Give me 6 weeks in a motel. We'll do things we don't tell if we're still alive when it's through. Give me 6 weeks in a motel, and I'll go down and pay hell, and I'll come back with diamonds for you. You made it, and now you're famous. You're an all-star, bad girl, black heart. You tore me apart. You played me like a fiddle. I got caught in the middle. You split before I got paid. Give me 6 weeks in a motel. We'll do things we don't tell if we're still alive when it's through. Give me 6 weeks in a motel, and I'll go down and pay hell, and I'll come back with diamonds for you. And I can't call you, it's still too damn soon. I wait till the season is through, and now I pray for the days to go by. One day I'll drop you a line. Somehow I'll find the right time. Give me 6 weeks in a motel. We'll do things we don't tell if we're still alive when it's through. Give me 6 weeks in a motel, and I'll go down and pay hell, and I'll come back with diamonds for you.
Man, that's a fantastic song.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that was maybe 10 years ago?
I wrote that song in let me think about this. I wrote that song in 2000. It came out first. I have a recording of it that came out in 2010.
Wow. Yeah.
On my that was my first. So I got out to Los Angeles. I got sober for the second real time in my life, right? And I was back sober, and I was around, and I was being creative, and I had that experience of being able to write outside of the thumb of guilt and shame. I had a breakthrough in that regard, and I wound up writing 6 weeks in a motel. Well, basically, I got out to California, and I started experiencing people respond to my accent. And having a Southern accent in LA is a damn thing for sure.
Yeah, dude.
And people will help you at a certain point. People are like, hell, just you come hang out with us and just talk. Like we just want you part of the entourage. So I wound up in all these interesting places, and I discovered myself as a Southern troubadour, having made the pilgrimage, just like Tom Petty and Lucinda Williams and Jerry Reed and a bunch of these other cats that had done this Southern troubadour, gone to LA thing. And I realized that it was a thing. And simultaneously, I got homesick for sweet tea and grits. And my youth, which was spent running away from country music, I found myself, country music started coming out of me out in Los Angeles, and that was my way. That was my segue back into it.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's like a full circle, homecoming, prodigal son returns, kind of story. You said something about when you said that that song's 10 years old and you said it's become an important part of your catalog. It was just like, it's really strange when you're to write a song is stepping into this very mysterious place where you don't know if you'll have a song at the end of this effort or how good it will be. And it's really interesting when you write a song, you're like, oh, that's pretty good, but then you have these songs that turn into like songs that you'll play every time, or like that's a song that's like part of your life catalog. Sure. And that experience, I have a couple of those I still play that are 10 years old. I'm going to play forever. I'm like, I'm hanging my hat on that song. Like, judge me on this one. I notice that I have a hard time. It's getting harder for me to write songs, and partly because of the way I've always done it. For me, a song is a movie, and I really want it. There's a crafting component to it. I'll really work on a song, and oftentimes it comes out of something fun to play on guitar or piano, like some little lick or some little riff where I'm like, that's fun, because if I'm going to play this night after night after night, a big part of the joy for me is the actual physical playing of the guitar.
100%.
And so there's this crafting thing, but I also like my songs to not be like each other. Right. So they're just, they've got their own little special thing. And for one thing, it's like, I guess there's only so many ways you can finger pick this. They start to kind of like so many tempos. Sure. Songs start to be sort of the same. So
mid-tempo songwriter hell.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly.
Mid-tempo songwriter hell. I'm going to keep going.
And so, anyway, so I noticed that, if I write another like mid-tempo finger style song, it's like gonna knock out another song by necessity, because I can't play all 10 of those songs. And so it's made me, like, maybe the upside of it, it's made me shift up how I write. It's like, okay, well, let's do an up-tempo song. Or like maybe this one's got like a little fast lick in it. Sure. Or maybe this is another thing I learned in my last record, actually, is that a lot of times, this is like, I've toured so much solo, and that's so like I'm the band, and so I've tried to always keep whatever's happening musically interesting enough to like merit, a solo performer. And so that's a lot, like a finger picking thing. Sure. It's like there's some busyness in there or whatever.
You can perform, right?
Yeah. And so like there's a song I do called Soft as a Cactus on the last record, and it's fine as a solo song live. But then when I recorded it and I thought, oh, we'll do it with a band, my friend Skylar produced the record, and I didn't really realize that until the mix. Now I'm like, God, it's way too busy with all the other instruments in it. Like the guitar.
Oh, your guitar part?
Yeah, my guitar part.
100%,
you know what I mean?
And I get you on that. I struggle through that too. The making the shift from developing my personal solo guitar parts, which, like you said, is often the inspiration, the entire inspiration for the movement, for the song, and making that bridge from that presentation in and turning. I find for myself, I have to then do an entire another workup and treatment of the song and come back of like, okay, now I'm going to be J.J. Cale covering this song on an electric guitar. Like, what am I going to do with that? And I have to get sparse and sort of like, Tom Petty and J.J. Cale about it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome that you can kind of shift your mind and think about a song a different way, and I think that's a really powerful thing to do. And not every singer-songwriter, especially like an instrumentally kind of motivated one, is able to do that, where your song becomes like this thing and this performance. And I don't think that's always necessarily a good thing. It's definitely like something I've had to learn and am still learning along the way, to like separate that song. I've noticed that like doing covers and stuff of other people's work is a helpful way to kind of get my mind thinking like that. And I can kind of turn it and apply it on my own stuff.
Yeah.
But
there's this other thing at work too, which I'll say is I don't necessarily, this is one of these deals like we were talking about earlier. I don't necessarily agree with this, but I accept it as I think this is actually the way it is. And that is this. There is this perception by the market at large that for some reason acoustic music is somehow another level of higher intimacy or a level of higher integrity or a level of more intimate, more authentic, more, because it's on acoustic instruments. And I just don't agree, first of all, because I look back, to 2010, and that year, that couple of years, dude, there's a slew of mandolin laden nonsense records out there that just like, hey, throw a mandolin or a banjo or a frolicking banjo lick on that son of a bitch, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, no, that does not fucking cut it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know,
man. I love riffing on the electric versus acoustic discussion. In my, I didn't grow up in a very musical family at all.
Nor did I.
Okay, cool.
Listeners, but no players.
Yeah, I didn't even. My parents never bought a record my whole life. I never had. There wasn't music in the house, and But my parents, like, their program for being good folks was to make their kids take piano or music lessons. So my brother, he got arbitrarily assigned violin, and I took piano lessons, and I took to it. I could just do it, and so that was how I got into it. And then
I'd give a damn big toe.
No, I think piano is so great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just such a powerful thing to look and see how it's the best way to understand music.
100%. It's linear.
Yeah, it's linear. Exactly. Yeah. But I didn't really get exposed to music until later in the game. But it was still my first band that I really loved was The Cure. And I was a new wave kid in the 80s and stuff. And then from there, classic rock and outdoors and, my late teens, then I got into Fish, blah, blah, blah. This is all to say that when I was about 22, I came across this David Grisman record called Hot Dog, and there's a Tony Rice guitar solo.
I know that
I didn't
record.
know anything about bluegrass.
Yeah, I know that record.
But that Tony Rice guitar solo, it fucked me up, man. I was just all I wanted to do was play bluegrass music. And there was 4 or 5 years, most of my 20s, I didn't care if Bill Monroe wasn't on the record. I didn't want to listen to it. It was just all old guy Stanley Brothers, Bill Monroe, Doc Watson, Norman Blake, all these acoustic bluegrass cats.
Right,
Scruggs, exactly. And I loved the guitar players, and I spent all this time trying to do it, and I never really got there. But it wasn't until this I came across. Well, there's two records that really got me back into the electric world. One was the acoustic, the Pizza Tapes, this other Grisman record, and it was David Grisman, Tony Rice, and Jerry Garcia. Just Grisman had a studio there, and they'd smoke weed and just jam. You know? And then so this record kind of came out. I guess the pizza guys found they were delivering a pizza one day, and they had this burned CD. David had a pizza delivered, and the pizza boy saw the burned CD and knew whose house he was at, and he swiped it, and it was out on
that's killer.
It was out on Napster and stuff.
Love
and so
it.
Grisman finally put the record out.
That's great.
But it was hearing Jerry Garcia play guitar, and granted it was still acoustic, but I was just God, it was just so much better. It was just so much more musical, and whatever it was to me. It came from a different place. That was one thing, and then the other thing was this guitar player named Bill Frisell put out a record called Ghost Town, and it was mostly acoustic. Yeah. And but it wasn't there was nothing showing off about it.
Right.
But it was tons of electric guitar in there too, and I was just oh yeah, electric guitar is such a high art form.
Did you ever run across Michael Hedges?
Oh yeah, dude.
He was a big deal.
Yeah.
The original. I consider him the original, and it was still, he wasn't gratuitous with the technique.
Yeah.
I loved him.
It was the tapping and the delay, right? That was the two.
Exactly. Guitar harps and stuff like that. He's playing a double neck guitar harp with playing it. He's got a low C. And stacked fourths on 5 harp strings, and then a regular 6-string, and he's playing a figure, and then he's playing his damn bass line.
If that's not high art. Or
I actually saw him
art,
one time. I saw him just before he died. He died tragically in a fucking van wreck in New England.
Wow.
But I saw him play at the damn Bitter End in NYC. That was like 98 or something.
Amazing. There was another guy
96, I don't know,
similar vintage, but Phil Keggy, he's I think he's a Nashville guy, but he was kind of a finger style dude.
Yeah,
the tapping and the whatnot.
Sure.
I took some of my approach for my live sound reinforcement from kind of his approach. Just a lot of times every time. I have a guitar. For a while, I had a rack-mounted preamp called a Pendulum Pre, which is like a stereo pre. They still make them. They're like $1,400, 20 years ago. But and I have 2 guitars still in the pickup, or the Martins put away somewhere. But there's 2 pickups in there and a stereo cable, and so you can kind of put the panning at 10 and 2. If you're playing a solo show, it's like it's pretty big sound.
Yeah.
Now I don't do that. The pickups are still in there, but it's just too much complicated, and I destroyed that preamp by hauling it all over the world.
Sure.
And not putting it in an airplane case. Anyway, that's my cross to bear.
Love it.
But now it's just like a tuner, a Boss EQ pedal, less for the EQ and more for just like kind of the dumb analog thing that Boss pedal does. It just sort of like squishes everything down, takes the
what kind of pickups in the guitar?
The one that I use is a Rare Earth.
I've heard about that.
Like
I've heard about
hole
that
transducer.
Yeah,
and I do this as pickups 15 years old now, so I'm sure the technology is better.
So that's an interesting. This is pertinent for me. So, like you, I played a lot of solo acoustic stuff from 2004 to 2010. I did a whole bunch of. It was mostly solo acoustic, and I was playing a good number of dates during all those years, just to get by, In 2010, when I got back down to Athens, Georgia, and I made that first quote unquote country or Americana record, I had a good band even back then, and everybody was cool. They were all about getting on that JJ Cale page with me, where the drummer's literally just going bat 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 bat, and maybe on the chorus he goes to a dirty hi hat, not a ride, and it.
But no hi hat.
Just like literally kick. Yeah,
beautiful.
And I had a good guitar player at that point who unfortunately died. His name was Daniel Marler. He had a twin brother named Drew Marler, who's still alive and a fabulous player. But when I started looking at songs like you're saying, I started, well, what do I need here? I need a tempo. I need a certain tempo. And I need to pick a key where it's comfortable, and I need the density of the melody line to be of a certain comfortable density where it's not, I like the staccato stuff. Staccato male vocals is a thing, a la James Brown, a la Van Morrison. Like there's a certain R&B thing, and that works well. So that's a entertaining form. That's a good form. That's very useful, and I started compartmentalizing songs in that way of like, well, like you were saying, like, well, I need about 3 of these, and then I need to give a break, a key break, change keys or tempos. And so I started constructing my set. I started writing what I needed.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting as time goes by. Like the first time when you're a kid and you write a song, you're just like, oh my God, I wrote a song. This is 100%. The beginning of who knows what journey. Yeah. It's crazy. But as time goes on, and if you're a professional at it and you're playing real sets night after night, you start to realize like, you start to not only construct your sets accordingly to keep them interesting and, take people on a journey, but as you write new songs, you start to think about what might my set need? Right. I don't think that's everybody. I think there's plenty of artists that never played 2-hour sets or needed to or whatever, and maybe they just write. I think that everybody has some kind of connection to like strategic mindset is not exactly the right way to put it, but something like where you're making a choice rather than being like led by the pure inspiration.
Yeah, by the muse, right? Agreed.
Like you're taking the muse with you, or like you're like, muse, come visit me under these parameters.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that view, because at the end of the day, look, man, I do love it on occasion when I find somebody that's made a whole down tempo record and it plays beautifully from start to finish, and it's just a wash, like a Sade record or some damn thing, right? Even within those worlds, they still have the good works. It's for me have a certain sense of a arc of a ride, but I still feel beholden as a singer-songwriter to have this certain mix tempo and intensity and energy and a relief from that and a ride.
Yeah.
I still don't have the confidence to make a whole down tempo cowboy song record. I just don't.
I know what you mean, man. My mind immediately goes to there's this kind of duo band called the Guitarras Hermanos.
Oh yeah.
And they kind of destroyed the industry 2 years ago, maybe when they came out, maybe 3, maybe 1, I can't remember exactly. And for whatever reason, Kyle could take it or leave it, but it just wrecked me.
Sure.
Like I just loved like their Tiny Desk, and then they did some work with Easy Eye Sound and put out a single with them, and I love it. And that said, I'm not. This is
and it's instrumental only, right?
It's instrumental only, and it's really hovers. It's the same thing.
Right.
And there's 40,
minor
40
key.
cuts.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And it's great as a vibe.
Not
when I
unlike
watch
that,
it live.
Yeah.
I'm like, 3 songs in, I feel like, okay, I've seen this.
What is it? War on Drugs? Is that the band I'm thinking of?
That's another guy.
This guy
like in the same
amazing sound design,
textures,
like the coolest,
yeah.
like the
Sonic palette's
coolest,
amazing. Yeah.
like unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'll be damned if they got an M song in their catalog. Like really?
Yeah.
I ain't nothing against them. I'm
mean,
still saying they I mean, who am I to say? I mean, they obviously hitting a lick, and that shit is hitting. And
absolutely, who are we to say?
I've seen that show too. I saw it at a Sand. It was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. I'll be damned if they have a song.
Yeah, it's funny. It's more, but it goes to show you, it's like people get different things out of different artists.
Agreed.
And you got to honor yourself, and hopefully, if you're lucky, you what you're putting out is meeting something that the public wants.
I'd be interested to hear your take on this. People talk about songwriting, and I've got a view of I think essentially that the great American songbook is the Great American Songbook really includes the Stones and David Bowie and the Brit rockers, because they were all making it was all American R&B and blues and country influence.
Yeah.
Okay, so we call it the Great American Songbook. It's the playlist of our lives. It includes all those songs. And here's what I'm saying: in that group of in the great playbook, which includes also all the Hoagie Carmichael, like all that stuff. Mm-hmm. The standards, the traditional Great American Songbook. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Gershwin songs,
all the way to Rhinestone Cowboy, right? So there is a cutoff point. I guess who's the great documentary? Ken Burns. Mm-hmm. His cutoff point was like 96. Mm-hmm. He's like, fuck it. After 96, fuck it. We're not even gonna document that shit.
Yeah.
Like fuck it.
Like Nirvana ended it.
Yeah, totally. So within that body of music, they pretty much wrote all the fucking songs. Mm-hmm. Like all the word and melody combinations are pretty much expressed. I mean, pretty much.
Sure.
Now, that being said, I do think that there are still a few stones that didn't get turned. Uh-huh. I do. I think there are a few stones left out there in the fucking field, laying next to a pile of cow shit that didn't get turned and claimed or written or discovered as a song.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have to think that, and there's no...
A few.
Yeah.
They're not as readily accessible as like Hold On Loosely.
Yeah.
It's not that easy to write a damn song anymore.
No. I mean, this is a related point. I agree with you. I don't even know if I think that way anymore. I do notice that like there's some tension that I feel that the way that the Americana genre is sort of a derivative or honoring the past, and it's like every single Americana record is drums, bass, acoustic guitar, electric guitar, B3, pad all the way through. That's the Ryan Adams template.
Sure.
And I recoil at that, and I rebel against it, and I put out records that weren't that. But the thing that I do come back to is that, and that's part of what this pod is about, and what various interests of mine in the past have been about when I've like shined a spotlight on other artists, is like I love the simplest thing. I love an artist who can sing, who can play his or her own instrument, and who can write a song worth sharing. And that, like, I've almost come to You know, that's why I'm such a fan of the Tiny Desk stuff, because I just
Yeah.
like seeing. I don't care about perfect at all.
Right.
You know, at all.
Right. You want to hear the
real
raw
thing. I just
yeah.
want to hear a person playing a song from their heart, with all of their training and their life and their experience, you know, coming through that.
The singer-songwriter thing. No, I get that for me, and then that brings us to me to a modern cultural clash or a disagreement, if you will.
Yeah.
So I feel the same way, and my drive, what made me go out of the house and made me start getting, like, once I got to be 12, 13, 14 years old, like, made me start going, oh, what is that? It was, and what it was for me, the bug that bit me and gave me the desire, or awoke the desire in me to hear an original, authentic human being's version or take of, like, well, here's how the 12 notes add up to me. Mm-hmm. And you can hear it. It's a fucking thumbprint that is uniquely identifiable in a, you know, like, in the same way that, I know you and I have a bunch of common, we've never talked about this, but I know we have a bunch of common other singer-songwriters who represent, oh, well, that's a great version and represents this way of looking at the notes and rhythms. And this other artist is another great example of this way of looking at the notes. And so that unique, identifiable version of I don't know what you call that. Is that somebody's direct inspiration with the higher creative force of, like, hey, here's the organized, organic version of how this wall works together.
Those singular souls and that singular perspective. I mean, like, you've mentioned J.J. Cale a few times.
Yeah.
I put him in that category.
Agreed.
Just like you instantly know a J.J. Cale song.
Agreed.
And it's not the Stones. It's not the Beatles. It's J.J. Cale.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what I love about artists. That's who I am drawn to, is the modern
Jimbo
versions of
Mathis
that.
is a great cat. You Squirrel Nut Zippers?
Oh, okay. Yeah,
He's a great cat and got a very identifiable, like, you know who interestingly T-Bone hollers at him, and I've came recently to it knowing that Jimbo is interesting. You'll dig him if you dig in.
Is he in town, or is he
on and off? He's sort of Mississippi Muscle Shoals cat too. Yeah. He's a bit mysterious, and where he actually hangs his hat for good. You know,
part of the mistake.
Yeah, I love him.
That. Yeah.
But yeah, I do. I have a particular affection and interest in those singular voices, songwriting voices, not necessarily just a vocal performance, but the voice of a writer.
Absolutely. I mean, those things are so mysterious, and I've talked to a couple of different guests here on the podcast about this, but something that was really important to me when I was younger, especially, like, I never thought I should go, like, granted I grew up in Idaho, so this on the other side of the world as far as I was concerned when I was a kid. But I never was like, I'm going to go to Nashville and become a famous singer. You know, and even when I was so passionate about music as a teenager, and all I wanted to do was be a rock star, my version of that.
Sure.
But it never occurred to me that meant moving to one of these big cities. And, like, I think, like, looking back, I know why now, is that intuitively was like, I want to find my own voice without the pressure of and the influence of all of the other people trying to do it. And so, you know, for that reason, I lived in this small town in Washington State, Bellingham. And while I was, like, I was listening to Charlie Christian all the time, and Fish. Like, I had all these influences. Otis Redding, Fats Waller was a huge influence for me. Like, I still, to this day, I'm like, I don't know if you know him. He's like kind of a jazz singer, a bigger guy.
Yeah.
Sold his catalog for peanuts. Piano guy.
Yeah.
Ain't Misbehaving was like his big stuff. But I loved him because the songs were great. But he was also just like a pure entertainer. He was so unpretentious about his, you know, incredible talent.
Sure.
And I don't have talent like that, but I liked. He was just, you know, he was acknowledging the audience with everything he did. He was thinking about, you know, like, entertaining you. I still have that perspective. It's like,
Sure.
When I encounter even really talented people up on a stage treating me like it's my privilege to get to see them, that's pretty off-putting, no matter your talent. Like, I don't care how great you are as a guitar player. Like 2 songs into it, I'm like, I get it.
Right.
If you're not like there to have fun and you're sharing this, then
so this brings me to an interesting, I agree 100%. And here's where that takes me. And we were talking about specifically the American catalog of music, and then we were talking about Americana music and these different umbrellas and stuff. For me, I have discovered over the course of a few years and just a slow sort of osmosis assimilation of some material is regarding the early American music. One of my favorite presentations of that is by Nick Cave. And he did the Lawless movie, and he did the Proposition, and which is the Australian Western. And so, it's an interesting thing.
Oh, I think I watched that. Yeah.
It's a Guy Pearce movie.
Yeah.
And then Lawless is the Prohibition era movie about moonshine runners, and Shia LaBeouf, I think, is in it. And the Nick Cave, the way he makes his version of early American music, he doesn't he emphasizes the roughness, and so the instruments and the way they're played are crude as hell, and it sounds like I've heard some real pickers who are too drunk. I mean, I grew up around some of these people in Western North Carolina. And so I've heard guys that were literally too drunk to come off the mountain. But on occasion, they go down and win Moral Fest every few years. And once a decade, some bitches go down and win Moral Fest. But he's literally too drunk to go off the goddamn mountain.
Yeah.
And the way those guys sound.
Yeah.
That is, dude, this ain't slick. Nothing fucking, it's
not showing off.
And they're not even presenting the shit.
Yeah.
And so Nick Cave, his dude, I love Marty Stewart and I love Vince Gill.
Yeah.
Their 1980s version of American music with chorus all over the guitars and those clean recordings at the apex of tape recording, right? A chorused out Strat does not sound like mountain music to me.
No.
And so I've late in my life, I still have appreciation and affection for those recordings, those 1980s Nashville recordings.
Sure.
But as far as the usefulness in film or
human emotion.
There you go. It's a weird thing, right?
I mean,
it's a weird thing, right?
On some level, the story of country music is the story of the attempt by the powers that be, the industry, to make this raw sound palatable to an ever
homogenize it. That's right.
And so to that end,
right.
like you had people like Ricky Skaggs, who just was born with a mandolin in his hand,
right.
and it's just always, he's playing with Bill Monroe when he's 11 years old, and then he's very part of that 80s slick scene and like the super clean guitars,
right.
and because that's what moms like, and to this day, it's like that's why you have Fred Eltringham, who's arguably the best drummer in the world, playing on all these sessions, and then the kid puts it all through Beat Detective, so it's just like locked to the grid, because that's what people, that's what they feel now, that's what they notice, and so like that push and pull around the beat isn't like a pure, like it's not gonna like get that last nickel out of the track, you know. So why not? So I think that part of us, I think every artist who has a heart is on some level at war with that, that push, whether or not I have tracks that are on the grid, and I even understand it. I'm like a child of the 90s and 80s and drum machine times. I mean, the first bands that I loved were
JJ Cale, dude, he had a couple, Paul Thorne too, Shelby Lynn. Yeah, there's a number of artists who, and I love that. I love the idea of using that as an aesthetic, as a tool.
Exactly, but as
even tongue in cheek. You know, like
totally.
even as a smart ass way to do it.
But there's something about like knowing, you know, I love how you describe that guy too drunk to come off the mountain, and just like the way the pick hits the strings.
Yeah.
What is that? That's just missed. That's like the devil.
And rough as a cop.
way.
Like there ain't nothing.
Yeah.
There ain't nothing fits in a grid about that shit.
Totally,
like
man.
you can't lock that shit down to a grid.
Yeah.
It'll destroy it. Like
Yeah.
it won't.
Yeah.
Like by the time you get done with that, it's like those guys play in such a way is that it literally, if you tried to lock them down to a grid, it'll fuck up all the inflections, and it'll take it all off so centered. Boy, it'll sound terrible.
Yeah. Well, and also like when you're playing to a grid, you're sort of, you know, I know how to play to a click.
Yeah, me too. I've made records. Those early. I've got records like that too.
But
Yeah,
you're kind of aware of the click. You're like sitting there, you're playing with the click.
I'm
Like,
leaning into it, right?
Into the groove, and so that's such a different way than just like, this is the tempo I'm playing it at. It might breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
And
granted, you and I are splitting damn hairs here. Like we're talking about some nuanced shit.
Pretty
here.
nuanced shit.
Because like, look here, at the same time, and I am a Marty Stewart. I love Marty Stewart so much.
I mean, he walks on water.
And his band with Chris Krug's in the band, oh my God. But so that being said, those 1980s records, dude, I love the songs. And I love his playing, and I love his singing. The records, and I have appreciation for those recordings. That was the apex of tape recording. That being said, they are fucking sterile in a certain way, where this Nick Cave, just in an aesthetic sense, in a purely aesthetic sense, when this shit hits the ears, that Nick Cave thing that I'm talking about, where there is nothing perfect, is not on a grid, and it's intentionally made to represent this other thing intentionally. It's just effective, man. Well, which brings about this other phenomenon. I haven't mentioned this. The phenomena of why British invasion stuff, like why are the fucking Rolling Stones so phenomenal? And they are phenomenal in a global, undeniable, and the Beatles were right there with it, and so is David Bowie.
Yeah.
Why is that what it is? And then R.L. Burnside or Willie Dixon or you know, I'm trying to think of an early
blues guy,
or a country guy like Hank Williams.
Yeah.
Why is that stuff? Why is the British version of this stuff this global, all-encompassing, encyclopedic version, and then the actual authentic thing version of it is this little niche?
Yeah.
This little niche Library of Congress version of the thing. Why is that? And here's, I don't necessarily have a great explanation, but for some reason, on occasion, a Polaroid picture of the actual thing is cooler than is more fun than the actual goddamn thing. You know what I'm saying? So the Rolling Stones Polaroid picture of Willie Dixon is actually entertaining on a whole scale.
Yeah, I mean, and some of that's like, who knows why, but you can speculate, you know, because in the sense is like
the affection,
the beautiful kids.
They
look like they were our audience.
Well, and they're the authentic and the romantic, larger than life affection that the Rolling Stones had for Willie Dixon, blow him up,
Which
possibly larger than life.
Yeah.
And the affection is so sincere and so authentic that their version of the thing just the amplitude of that sound wave is huge and undeniable. It's all encompassing.
I was thinking about this book earlier when you were talking about being a southern gentleman out on the West Coast, but there was a book I read that I really loved called "Are You Ready for the Country?" and it's about. There was a time, maybe this is like 15 years ago, when I first moved to Nashville, I just like read all of these like country music histories or versions of country music. I always liked history anyway, but like Elvis's biography that came out maybe 10 years ago, it's pretty new, fantastic. It's like two pieces,
I don't know.
two books. But Are You Ready for the Country is talking about the influence of the West Coast in country music with the Byrds and, you know, Graham Parsons and
Sure.
this like where in Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, even a piece of that where it's just like this.
100%.
It's kind of a similar thing where it's like country music taken through like after the Beach Boys. Beach Boys were concurrent, but
sure. No, I'm catching you the whole Laurel Canyon, everything
kind of
Laurel
freer
Canyon
vibe
from Carole King to all of
that kind of
James
came
Taylor,
through that
everything,
ethos. But God, there's another one written by a guy who is, and this is I can't remember, so forgive me. This is not going to be super helpful, but he was there when Otis Redding wrote, sitting at the dock of the bay. He's a famous music journalist, but he followed the Stones around. And it talks a lot about that history, that exchange that was happening with like Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis, and then how that kind of was the first thing that like really tipped off those guys in the next generation.
Sure,
because it was like a more palatable, rebellious version of the thing that their parents knew.
Sure,
this is like Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis in a way, and then that kind of like got the kids excited over in the aisles, and then they took it and like kind of reflected it back in a new and even more interesting, like twice removed,
right?
And I think that was part of the thing. It's like the popular ethos is always about new and different and singing about our struggles, whatever that means, and then whereas the traditional ethos, which is like the guy too drunk to come down off the mountain, is sort of more about like playing it the way it's been done, or like it's not consciously innovative. Yeah. It's not commercial. It's not trying to be commercial. It's just trying to be what it is. It's the thing itself rather than a borrowing of the thing.
Agreed. It's interesting. One thing, and I learned this. Being out and LA was amazing for me. My experience out there was bohemian as hell. Most people I know, most people I've heard don't speak well of LA. I lucked out and had a really cool bohemian experience. I mean, I fell in with great people quickly, and I just had a excellent paying, high level production job that my buddy owned the production company. I was non-union, so I had a magic experience out there. I lost my track.
People speak ill of LA, but you beg to differ.
Yeah. What were we were talking about before that?
The influence of how California in popular music being more innovative or progressive or opportunistic, you could say, or appropriative. You could also say it on the downside, as opposed to traditional expressions being more traditional. Yeah,
I mean, like the difference in between honky tonk women and the Willie Dixon shit is undeniable. I mean, the Willie Dixon shit is esoteric and syncopated as a motherfucker. The Rolling Stones is like the drum machine version. Like
straightened out,
stripped down, and there is a efficiency in that process that that resonates with me. Now, that being said, if you go too far with that efficiency, you actually lock it down with the drum machine, unless it's J.J. Cale and they're doing it in some intentional aesthetic purpose, and it's just locked down to a grid, and it's music from across the row that looks like when you light, those snakes, those fireworks, and they come, that's what those wave files look like. When you look up those
big old tubes,
dude, zero dynamics,
totally.
Zero, and that stuff. I was educated by people in LA. They're like, people like film guys. They're like, dude, you can't use any of that Nashville music for actual movie music. It doesn't have any damn dynamics. It's locked down to a grid and it's so fucking sterile. It has zero vibe. So when you line that shit up with some cinematography, good looking cinematography, it's just garbage. And they can't. Those guys in Hollywood can't use that shit off the row. They literally can't use it. Can't use it.
Good.
It's like it won't function.
Leave some for us.
Exactly.
Well, dude, this has been so great. Thank you so much. We're gonna have to do this again because obviously we could just talk for 2 more hours.
I'm so much enjoy your company and your. I can't wait to see where you continue watching, where you go with the film, and also continue digging into your catalog and finding the gems in your catalog.
We'll have to get together and write one.
Count me in.
And speaking of which, let's just play out maybe.
Let's do it.
I'll join you on that one song
please.
that you sent me.
Please.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
We'll do it again soon.
Thanks, man.
Peace.
Hang out left on White Creek Bridge and stay on 33. There's a sharecropper shack by the railroad tracks and a big old sycamore tree. A big old sycamore tree. The scars on a limb where the rope had been and an old tire used to swing. In that shade I had my first taste of love at 17. Lord, I was just a 17. In another life with a Boy Scout knife, I made a pledge here in the bark, a lasting monument to you and me. We both swore forever as I carved 4 letters in a heart, 4 letters in a heart, 4 letters in a heart, 4 letters in a heart. I come back every now and then to pay a visit to my past. My fingers trace the marks I made for love. It did not last, young love, it did not last. It's easy for a young man to promise love when he don't know what it cost. He's yet to face the cold hard day. He gonna learn about loss, and Lord, I learned about loss. In another life with a Boy Scout knife, I made a pledge here in the bar, a lasting monument to you and me. We both swore forever as I carved 4 letters in a heart, 4 letters in a heart, 4 letters in a heart, 4 letters in a heart. Pick one. Hang out left on White Creek Bridge and stay on 33. There's a sharecropper shack by the railroad tracks and a big old sycamore tree. A big old sycamore tree. The scars on a limb where the rope had been and an old tire used to swing. In that shade I had my first taste of love at 17. Lord, I was just a 17. In another life with a Boy Scout knife, I made a pledge here in the bar, a lasting monument to you and me. We both swore forever as I carved 4 letters in a heart, 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 4 letters in a heart.
Hey, thanks for watching. Go ahead and click here to like and subscribe. You can click right there to watch another video, or click here to watch a playlist featuring the songs of the Morse Code Podcast. Okay, thank you very much.